Now, good evening and welcome to another tutorial. We'll pick up from where we left in the last tutorial, where we learned on basics of BIM, architectural drafting. You'll notice that that one will just scale 1 to 50. Today, I want us to do a little bit of drafting at a detailed level so that this will form the basis of our modeling. So welcome to the session today. Thank you. Now, we had finished drafting at scale 1 to 50. I want us to do 2 or 3 drafts at a larger scale so that we are able to sort out 2 issues. One, we're able to show the need of construction technology knowledge. Without construction technology, it's normally difficult to understand the building blocks of a building, okay? And number 2, we'll be able to resolve what I consider to be some basic communication flaws that I've noticed with so many students. Students don't know how to communicate in terms of orthographic projections. So this tutorial should help us in resolving that. So we'll start by creating a new worksheet. Let's call it boundary walls details. I'll want us to do the details at scale 1 to 20. So we need to upgrade to scale 1 to 20, okay? And since there are details of what we have done previously, I'll want to overlay what we had previously done so that when we are handling it, we are in a position of understanding what we are doing. So I'll take that and I'll use this beautiful tool. It's called trace and reference. So I want to trace and reference what we had previously done so that I'm able to see that what we had done. So there it is. We are working on this sheet details, but we have overlaid what we had done yesterday so that we are able now to build up what we had done. So I'll want to pick up a portion of the drawing and do it in detail so that I'm able to show the knowledge on construction. And number 2, I'm able to resolve issues of orthographic projections and parallel projections. So for now, I intend to pick up this portion. I intend to use that portion so that we're able to resolve a template of what we need to do. By doing that portion, we'll have understood how a column looks like. We'll have understood how a wall looks like. And by extension, we can also handle the grains. Once you're able to do that, now the replication becomes very easy because there's a question of understanding how those parts are done. Now, at detail drafting, you will not only show the element, not only show the components, but will show the various items that make them up, okay? In our case, we have the column, which is made of 600 by 600 concrete. And at this level, you can even start activating now the boundary lines. And that can still retain the thick pen. Okay. And then let us quickly suspend the throw it so that we are able to handle the rest. Now, Normally for columns, normally plaster. And the plaster on average usually half an inch. So we can work with around 15. So we'll have a 15 millimeter thickness of plaster. And then once you have finished the 15 millimeters of plaster, you'll paint. Paint usually 3 coats. The coats are usually thin, so I can comfortably use even a 0.1, because that's the lowest unit we can have here. So that if I go through this, I can see the extent of the concrete, you can see the extent of the plaster, and you can see the extent of the paint. Now, I want to do the same now for our building materials. So for our building materials, we look for mortar. There it is. So we'll be able to place mortar. Okay. And then we look for paint. Again, I think within it we can get, let's work with off-white. So with that, we have shown the 3 parts of reinforced concrete. Now, normally these concretes are normally reinforced. So as a result, we'll have a rebar and usually have a cover of 25. So the cover of 25 now, depending on the structural engineer's design, let's assume that we are going to use a D16. So that means that the radius is 8. We need to show that reinforcement. Can we get a material for steel? Let's see if we can get one. Trying to get a material. Now, as I said, with regards to materials, you'll always follow the first tutorial to help us learn how to make this. So there it is. And again, in terms of pen weight, I need a 1 or a 2. Can even use a 5. Let me return the true weight so that we see what we're getting. Now, this is happening because simply I forgot to adjust the pen weights. So for the plaster, cannot be that, maybe you can work with a 0.3. And then for the paint, can work with a 0.2. So you must always be careful with your lines, okay? This level, you cannot see them so much, but let me just try and upgrade it to even scale 1 to 2. Now, with clarity, you should be able to see them. Okay, we have that. Then we have plaster and paint. Okay, now you can see at that scale you've been able to pick up a steel material, but it has a little bit of an issue in terms of pen weight. You can see the fill there. So instead of overwriting here, the easiest thing will be to go so that you don't have to repeat yourself every now and then. So we need to go and adjust. So one of the ways of picking up this one is still 131109. So we go there in the fields, deal with steel. One is there, sorry. Let's go to the building materials. There it is. So it is easier to deal with it at this level rather than trying to be adjusting every now and then. And I can deliberately make it gray. So there it is. So let me revert to my scale of 1 to 20. Okay. So that one is a river. I need to and since I will need one at the center, so I'll use a multiply tool. Switch tool. It's the same. Not the central one. Remember, we also have the rings. So allow me not to go to the details for the rings for now. At least that one gives you an idea. And if you have to give provision for the ring, let's assume you're working with D8. It means that so first, the lines. Looks like now that's the beauty of the flip side of these tools. You must always be careful what you are working with. Otherwise, in my case, by mistake, I've multiplied the circles. In actual sense, I wanted to multiply the fill. You can see that's a circle. So we don't have the fills, those points. So allow me to, I'm tempted to bring it a little bit lower. So again, another tool. Since I will not make this one it. As I said, I wanted to give provision because I can add it later. For the rings, let's work with a ring of 8. Now, so as you can see, you must be knowledgeable. There are no two ways about it. You must be on top of your game with regards to construction technology. Because from the construction technology, then with a lot of comfort, you should be able to do your details. Now, in our case now, we have our column. There's our column, okay? So you'll realize if you compare this column, allow me to save it here, detailed. If I compare this column with that, you'll find that this one now has more content simply because we are doing a detailed drafting. we are detailing at a larger scale. And as a result, now we are able to show more content, okay? Now, on the same basis, allow me to do a detail for the wall. But before I do a detail for the wall, I have a column. And that column, there's not so much difference between this column and this one. So what I need to do is to pick up this and drag a copy. So that I retain the group things to be grouped. I don't want to group everything again. So I'll pick up that and take it there. Okay, so with that, we have that portion. Okay, now let us handle now our walls. Now it's the same thing, okay? For our walls, again, you have to be knowledgeable. Our wall is made of masonry. So we'll come and put our masonry there. There it is, okay? At this level, we can introduce the boundary and give it, let's say, 0.4, okay? Not as strong as the structural concrete or structural column, okay? But not as weak as a plaster. Now, a rule of thumb, you'll never plaster on a masonry. If you're building in a systematic way, you'll start first of all with the column, then come and build the masonry, and come and plaster. What does that mean? It means that where plaster and paint clashes with masonry, the masonry takes precedence. That's very important because that's a priority that we will talk about later, okay? So in this situation, we have to cut off a portion of our plaster that is not, or that's clashing with our masonry. So there it is, I've cut the plaster, let me also cut the paint. Oh, looks like I've done for both of them. Now the line, remember these were drafting lines. Okay. Right now you don't need, so you can either hide them, so you can create a layer of hiding. Now for me, I'm a firm believer in not deleting anything. So if you feel that something's an obstruction, instead of deleting it, just hide it. You never know, it might come back later that you need it. So like those lines, just hide them. Creating layers, we had already discussed in tutorial number 1. So kindly follow up that tutorial. So we have our masonry. Now, just like our column, it has plaster and paint, okay? So in my case, I have 2 options. I can draw the plaster, or I can just do additions to this, okay? So, because I know that plaster will be uniform that way. I know that plaster will go outwards by 15. I think we used 15 if I'm not wrong. Yes. Then we'll cover all around. Then I can add another 15. You take it, okay? Now, the same rule in terms of prioritizing. We'll use the same rule for our paint. Where our paint clashes with plaster, like in that case, the plaster will always be given priority because definitely it's constructed or it's done before the paint. So can add that one. So it takes me back to what I had said. You must be knowledgeable on construction. You must be knowledgeable on the construction processes so that by the time you're doing this, you're not doing any second guesswork, but you have a thorough understanding of what you're doing. Once again, at that point, our paint is clashing with masonry. So where paint clashes with masonry, masonry is given priority. So we'll discuss about prioritization later, but at least that one gives you an idea of what we have. Okay, let's activate the true weight and see. So ideally, that's what we should be seeing in terms of your detail. Let us do our window. Now, in Kenya, the predominant materials for windows are mild steel, okay? And mild steel, you can use the Z profile. You can play around with the hollow section profiles, okay? So for now, for our illustration, I'll work with the hollow profile of 50 by 25. Now, 50 by 25, what does it mean? It means that that is 50, that is 25, okay? And remember that it's hollow, so it has a thickness. Let's work with a thickness of 3. Again, these things you don't guess. At least the beauty about Kenya is that most of these suppliers nowadays avail catalogs. Companies, I will not mention them, but there are a lot of steel producing companies avail these catalogs that are readily available. So that is the profile of our window, and is going to be made of steel. So I will come, I've already used steel. So here it is. I'll come and place it. So that's our steel. So with that, I want to come and place it. Now, in my case, I will center it. And again, in terms of prioritization, we place and anchor our steel. In fact, we usually have, if I can draw it outside so that very clear, we usually have what in Kenya we call a wall pass, but basically it's a hook kind of piece of metal. So let me just quickly show it. We use a piece of metal of 50. So let me use 25. And usually ensure that it has some rough edge. So this one can be placed like that. So basically the idea is to have a hook-like edge. Now this one in our case, because it will be embedded in our wall, will not see it, but it's relevant to us, okay? So drafting techniques, for such a thing, just use a dash, show it as dashed, okay? So in our case, if we bring back this, We'll have something like that, okay? Let's do for the other side. The other side, we also have a wall. Now, to make our lives easier, I don't want to read the whole process. I'll just copy that. I can mirror. So by now, you need to learn these techniques that make your life become a little bit easier. So I have mirrored, and then I realized that I don't need the column, so I can chop off that part of the column. So I can chop off that portion. Then now quickly finish up this area. Gain basic knowledge on construction technology goes a long way towards making your modeling easy. Don't have those basic knowledge. Don't have that basic knowledge with regards to construction, then it becomes very easy. It becomes very difficult even to do some of the tasks that are considered basic. Okay. So there we are, okay? So we have our wall, okay? Now, this window frame, sorry, still be mirrored on this side. So there it is. Then maybe what type of window are we having? Maybe it's a fixed window. So if it's a fixed window, we'll have a flat bar. Let's use a flat bar of 25 by 3. Okay. This flat bar is welded on that. And on the flat bar, we'll have our glass. Let's see if we can get glass. A glass of 4 millimeters will do. So let me try and get glass. Clear glass 4 millimeters, that will do. Okay. Last but not least, we'll have whatever I normally use to hold our glass. So in our case, most of the times you shall place it at 45. What is the name? And by now you know the name. It's called Party. So in our case, we look for Party. We might not have Party for now. These are things that you need to build slowly, but I can use that black for now. Okay. Then mirror it. Can mirror it with this other side. So as you can see, we are done with that. Okay. The only thing is that our plaster and our paint, rule of thumb, you fix the window before the plaster and paint, so that one should not be seen in any way. So let's chop off that portion. Okay, normally fix the window first and then come and do that finish properly. Okay, the same case applies to this. So that's our window. Remember that with regards to projection, you show what you are cutting through, and we can see it, and we show what we can see. In our case, we'll have the edge of the window frame. We'll have the edge of that. Have the edge on this side of our window frame, and then that will be party, okay? And then we'll have the edge of our window. Remember that our window is not touching the ground. So if you look at that detail, you'll see that it's a true reflection of how that part will be constructed. Now, the only things that you have not reached the column, so there's a possibility that these ones will be a replica. So what I need to do is to drag or multiply by 1200. So what I need to do to pick up on all that, so I can comfortably drag from here and give it a spacing of 1200. 600 for the wall and 600 for the window. Something getting lost. Let's see what is that's getting lost. That one is okay. That one is okay. That one is okay. So we just need to clean up all that plus. So allow me to do that. Now, once you have ascertained that that one is okay, now I just need to come and cut off. Priorities, always remember that. Priorities are usually dictated by the precedences during construction. Okay, what comes before the other? I cannot paint before I plaster. I cannot plaster before I fix my window. So if you have a proper understanding of this process, then it becomes very easy. And that's why I always insist that you must learn the construction processes. You must learn all the step-by-step processes in construction. So up to that level, the only part that is remaining is cleaning up this area. Again, generally the window, the wall is okay. The only things that the finish is what, as you can see, we have a small clash. So let me first of all split. So up to that point, and remove that. Sorry. Repeat again. Something funny happening. I just want to delete that part there. That part. Now, as you can see, we have a small problem here in the sense that in those ones need to remove them. Remove from there to there. Now, you realize an interesting thing is happening. This one is plaster. This one is plaster. Rule of thumb, where the plaster and plaster meet, we should not have any line. So in such a situation, we just need to consolidate. So we can consolidate them. See, currently there are two. Let's see what will happen. They've been reduced to one. Okay, been consolidated to one. Let us take, in fact, I should have even consolidated it with that so that it's one uniform fill throughout. Then on the same basis, let me pick up the paint. That one, and that one. Okay. I will merge them, and then at this point here, I will come and clean them. So free consolidation from 3 to 1. That's correct. Then now I come and cut off these other portions. Okay. We have a line here. What is it about? Again, there are those lines that I talked about. I don't need to see them. Again, I don't need to delete them, so the better compromise to hide them, okay? So with that, we'll have had our detailed, okay? If you compare to the overlay, we have a continuation here, but that one, we'll do it now in the exercise. So up to that point, we have our detailed wall with sheeted columns, okay? Now, one of the challenges I've noticed with students is that they have either forgotten the tenets of orthographic projections or they ignore them. And this one comes with what I usually refer to as catastrophic results, okay? When you are drafting, especially when you're doing it manually, you must learn to project. And in our case, when we're doing an orthographic projection, we'll have the plan, the top view, we'll have the front view, we'll have the side view or side views, okay? So I want to quickly do an orthographic drawing for this. Again, just learning the basic concepts. By the time you go to modeling, most of these things will be automated. However, it's important that you have control of what is being automated. Because if you don't know how they are done, at the end of the day, you will not be sure whether whatever you're doing is correct. So in my case, I want to quickly create a space for orthographic projection, okay? There it is. And then this one, rule of thumb, the bottom left is always top view, that one. It can never be changed, okay? Then from the top view, we'll want to see the front, okay? So if I can just use a fill here. Basically showing us, now that's the view that you're looking for. Now, when it comes to the front view, there's usually two aspects. One is the projected aspect, and then there's the measured aspect, okay? So I want us first of all to project what we can see, okay? Now, this one being a plaster, we might not see that joint, okay? However, if the column was offset a little bit, we'll be seeing that, okay? So I want us to project what we see. So in my case, I will use a guideline, okay? And if I'm to project, I'm going to project what I'm seeing. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing that. I'm seeing this corner. I'm also seeing this corner. So rule of thumb, you project what you can see. We are not cooking anything, not cooking up anything. So we are just doing what we can see. Okay. So I can see all those corners, hence the projection. Now in projecting, especially when doing manually, you use guidelines, a hard pencil, a 2H or its equivalent. And you just touch the sheet, okay? So up to that point, we have projected the corners, okay? In my case, I'll want to take the projected lines lower to lower than the drawing so that does not affect my original drawing, okay? Now, besides this corner, I will also see this corner of the window frame. So I will also project that. I'll also project this. Besides the window frame, I will also see the corner of the parting. So I'll also project that. I'll also project that. So for now, we have projected those points, okay? Now what you'll notice, since my windows are the same, while I can still repeat the projection, or to make my life easier, I can drag a copy. But when you're doing it manually, inevitably, you cannot drag a copy. So you just have to do it manually. And then if I'm not wrong, we are using a spacing of 1200. So spread at 1200. So with that, I have the projections of my windows, okay? And that one's a projected line, which is fine, okay? I will again push it to back so that it will not obstruct in any way my work, okay? Now, I want to show my elevation. So my elevation, I'll still use guidelines. Assume that that's my ground level, okay? I have a wall of 2 meters. And then I have columns of 25. Okay, what does that tell you? It tells us that as much as we'll not see the column here, that protrusion of the column will be seen. So it calls for us also to project the extent of our columns. Okay, so this is the extent of our column. This is the extent of our wall. This is our base. Okay, now for our wall, this window, remember that's a feature window. So maybe let's assume that we had a beam of 300. So the top of our wall, we have a beam of 300. And let's assume that our window, the sill is at 1 meter. So as you can see now, you already have level. So let's say that's the ground level. Quickly. Then this one will be the sill. This one will be beam. horizontal beam bottom. This one, the beam top. Then we'll have our column top. So you'll notice that we have projected the positions of our windows, our walls, and our columns from plan. And then from our base, we have measured. So the front view always is a hybrid of the two. You must project and you must measure, okay? In our case, we have done that, so we can now start picking up the extent of our elements. Now, for our column, I want to use our black line. So as you can see, our column, we can only see it from the top of our beam. So that clearly shows the part of our column that will be seen. After all, the other portion of the column will be plastered together with the wall. So with the wall reaching there, but remember that between the column and the wall, we cannot see any difference simply because it's plastered. So we have that. The same case with that part there. So that is what we will see. Okay. Remember, all of it is plastered. Okay. Then we have a beam and we have a sea level down there. Okay. Now, assuming that our window is just a single plane like this one, and we have the same frame behaving on the top and bottom, what does it mean? It means that the extent of the frame and the party will be the same. So I just need to have the same at 45 degrees, okay? And I need to place it that point there, okay? And we also need to place it the lower part there, okay? So I think you can now start to see our window, okay? So at this point here, we have a beam. In fact, the beam being continuous, you can now even easily place it without worrying so much. And then this beam, remember that all of it is plastered, okay? Then we have a wall below. Now remember, we have not defined that wall properly, but this will give you an idea that the wall is similar to this other continuous. So again, just like the beam, cannot comfortably place that wall because we know that we not have any other obstruction. Okay. Now, with that point of the window, now we can clearly show the extent of our wall. Our wall is at that point. Okay. Now, where our beam and the wall meets to be plastered, so we will not have any line. It's plaster and plaster. Okay. Where our wall meets there, again, we will not have that. So as you can see, from a distance, we are starting to see our elevation, and I'll repeat the same. Now that I've known that we have that, let me place this one here again. And with that in place, we don't need that. Pause. Cluster meets cluster. Okay, let's repeat it again here. From here to here. Okay. Okay. So we can see our 3 windows. At the back, we can see our column, so we need to place this other column. This column, it's plaster and plaster, so this line will not be seen. So with that, we have our elevation. Okay. Now this elevation, let me just hide those guidelines a little bit for you to see our elevation. So for you, since you'll be using very light lines, they should be able to pronounce themselves. The elements should be able to pronounce themselves. So as you can see, we can see the wall with the column, we can see the window, the window, the window, the wall with the column, etc. Okay. Remember, we have not finished. Now we have the details for the window. For the window, we have a door frame. We have a window frame, sorry, that's partially seen. It should be a line that can be seen. So that, and then we have our party seen. Again, remember that our party is sloping in the corners. So in our corners, we'll see that line. And that one can be replicated for all our windows. Again, I'll just spread by 1200. There will be, so we have our window, we have our party, we have our walls, etc. Okay. Now, there's something that is missing on top of our walls. That's what we call a coping. Now, copings vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but for us, there's a specific type of coping that we use that slopes on both sides. Now, while I can easily place it, I want you to see the correlation between the third drawing. That's what you see how at times we borrow from one another, okay? So that will be our elevation. I'll now want to draw our section. And our section will be basically the side view. Now, instead of viewing it completely on the end, instead of viewing it from the end, for it to be an elevation, I'll want to view it right in the middle. So that we see it as a section, but for the side, okay? Now, For us to be able to see this, again, now the beauty about this, it has some element of a section where we are cutting through, and it has an element of elevation where we are seeing a column, okay? So what we usually do on the top right is where we'll draw it, and what we need to do is just to project, okay? Now, how do you project? What you cut, you run it to that line, then you project it upwards, okay? So at that point, we have cut through the wall, projected it upwards. Now, we have the extent of the wall, we have the window frame, we have the beam above it, okay? Now, those ones, we just project those levels. So as you can see, up to this level, we have not measured anything, we're just projecting, okay? And with that, I can comfortably show my wall. And remember that it's not just an elevation, it's a section. So that I can easily use a fill. The fill will not be so different from this. So there we have it. Okay. Now, remember that the wall below our windowsill, though we are not cutting through it, it has the same characteristics as the wall that we are cutting through, okay? So what does that mean? It means that we can easily project this information about the plaster. Can easily project this information about the plaster and about the paint. So, in fact, we have projected the extent of the masonry because we had already projected the extent of the paint. So, project the extent of the plaster. Okay, and then once you have done that, we mirror them. Okay, so with that, we can comfortably now start showing the relevant details for our wall. So as you can see there, we had made a mistake. The wall will not be a full wall, okay? Now, that even reminds me about something. At this level, we can easily see the courses of our wall. Normally, if you have done construction, these are basic things that you know. You will have a DPM, so that we just place a DPM. You'll have a DPM, let's say 2 millimeters. And you must have something that mimics that DPM for now. I have one there. And then you will start showing your masonry courses, okay? Now, masonry course is 200. And then we have a mortar bed of 15, okay? And we'll proceed on with the same thing, okay? So does that mean, it means that if I have to quickly multiply, I just do 200 plus 15, so 215. So they're up to there, okay? So I can easily show my masonry. I forgot something. We have a course at the lower part, so to push everything by 15, so that even if we drag this by 215, will be able to see. So the course is nothing but mortar, so I can easily pick up the mortar there and use it here. Mortar, and then we have the masonry. There it is. In terms of pen weights, ensure that the pen weights are consistent. Right now, my guidelines might be covering them, but just make sure that they're consistent. Now, to ensure that the guidelines don't cover again, you can use for the select and find and select. You look for that pen line and you look for the pen associated with that pen line so that I select all of them and take them to back. Okay, so that I start seeing I can even bring the two weights out to see whether whatever I'm doing is correct. Now that shows me that my mortar might not be correct. In terms of weighting, mortar might be correct, so maybe masonry is what needs to go a little bit. I'm seeing they're more or less correct, okay? So I will spread that at 215. Okay. And then I will cut off what I don't need. Remember the last whatever, the last masonry stone. In our case, we'll have to chop it off. Chopping it at what point at that point? Okay. So with that, we have our masonry wall with the courses. There's one thing that we have forgotten. In Kenya, again, we normally have a wall pass. Okay, the wall pass is made of steel, so we usually put at every alternate course. So allow me to place it here. It's usually around 2 millimeters by 25. So this takes me back to what I always talk about: knowledge on construction. These things, there are no ways about them. You must know them. If you don't know them, it's a possibility that you will not be able to handle whatever task you are given properly. So it's at alternate courses. So as you can see, we just have them there. Okay. So we have our section of our masonry wall. We need to plaster, we need to paint it, okay? So for the plaster, we already have the lines. We have the line extent of plaster and we have the extent of painting. So just need to pick up the plaster material, which is mortar. Place it there. And then now remember that we'll have plaster above. You have it there. Okay, again, let's look at the true edge. Now starting to come out in terms of detail. You can now clearly see our plaster. Just like the plaster, for every plastered part will paint. So let's place our paint. Now at scale 1 to 20, if you are doing manually, you agree with me that things like paintwork cannot be seen. But if you are doing them at scale even 2 to 1, That one you can easily pick up paintwork, okay? But for me, I always like detailing. We call it a construction detail, where you actually show all the things associated with the construction, okay? So you've done that. We now need to place the beam. The beam, again, the extent of the beam is that. So the beam, just like concrete, will come and place it here. Now, this gives me a chance to teach you 2 or 3 things. So there's the beam, okay? However, some of these things we can quickly do them by just picking up what we had previously done for our columns. So if I, for example, pick that, I pick that, and I pick that, I know my column is 600 by 600. What about my beam? My beam is 300 by 200. So I can easily pick up that. That is if I'm doing drafting, but manually you have to do it inevitably the same way. And then I can, first of all, look for my 200. So for 200, it's easy. Just need to get the 100. So if I split this, and then I mirror, I have my beam of 200, okay? But the beam is also here is 300, okay? So, and this one is 600, so it means that I need to stretch it. So instead of splitting this one, I can easily stretch. So if I stretch this by 300, we'll have that, okay? And then if I mirror that, I have my beam. All what I need to do is to unify the relevant part. So consolidate that to one, consolidate this into one. I consolidate this into one. So I've deliberately veered off just to show you the various possibilities. There's always no, you don't have just one route in ArchiCAD, whether you're drafting or modeling. You always find that one thing can be done in various different ways, okay? So for me, I've come and placed my beam there. Now, it takes me back now to our elevation. Remember, I talked about the topping of our walls. We need to top it using a coping, okay? Now, most of the times our copings are usually the extent of the plaster, 230. Then we have overhangs of 25 on both sides. That makes it 280. And then the thickness is around 50 with the edges being 25. So what does that mean? It means that if I have a rectangle of 280 and 50, okay, I can even make it 25, so that I get the edges and then pull the center by 50. By 25, sorry. So normally that's how our coping will be. Definitely usually have that smaller, again, attention to detail. Usually have that small detail there. And this other side. Okay, so ideally that's how our coping will look like. Most of the times we place it once you have plastered. Okay. And definitely we'll place it on top of the mortar, not top of the paint. So it means that the paint will have to give way. Again, attention to detail. Your knowledge on construction will always come in handy. If you don't know these things, it becomes very difficult for you to handle some of these things. It's always important to have that clarity with regards to construction, so that now, by the time you are now modeling, you don't have anything that confuses you. Okay. Now, most of the times, the sails are precast, so they come already finished. All what you might do is painting if you want to. So does that mean usually have a thin film? I'll not call it of mortar, okay? But what usually happens is that when you are casting it and use the float, you can easily get that smooth finish. I think that one all of us by now are aware of. So allow me to put that one so that we are able to differentiate those two. Okay. So we have the plaster, then we have the concrete. Now, I want to place my concrete, so I just draw it on the line. There it is. Okay. Then my plaster, just draw it on that line. Then cut it off using this other line. Okay, so as you can see, we are done with that. And as I said, and I'll repeat, let me pick up these lines again so that I'm seeing a number of them have started obstructing me. Them again and send them to the back so that I'm able to see. And also take the circles, send them to the back. Okay, so with that, I'm able now to start seeing. Okay, now I wanted to show the relationship between these two things. Okay, now I have put a coping for my wall. That coping will have been just placed using the section. Okay, but since I had not placed it on the front elevation, I just now again to reverse project. Okay, so project there, project that, I'll project that. That gives me the extent of my coping. So if I want to show that coping, I'll just come here, which lines were which. I just, so it's from that one. So we'll have that line, the front side that we are seeing. And then we'll see the sloping part. Again, as you can see, straightforward, just need to know what you're doing, okay? Now, we are done with the part that we are projecting. All what's remaining is now for the window. The window in section is not so much different from this. So personally, I will lose nothing if I just pick up this as it is. And mirror it. Have I forgotten? Notice I've temporarily deleted to allow me know what I'm picking and what I'm not picking. So I know if I need to pick that, I'll deliberately mirror it In your case, you'll have to manually draw it. Then I will come and place it where it's supposed to be. In this case, it's supposed to abut the beam that level. Okay. In our case, you can see this. It's slightly short, so what I need to do is to measure that's 100. Drag it outside, and then stretch by 100. Once I've stretched, I'll take it back. Don't remember how much. Well, the bit is at the center. So the center. So it is the rule of thumb. Anything that clashes with that has to be removed. Okay. So remove that part. Then again, okay. So as you can see now, our detail section clearly shows how our wall will be. Let's quickly project our column. These are about the columns that we are seeing it. So we'll just project the end. Also project it there. Remember, our column was going up to there. Okay. Then we'll have the same language with this. So we'll have a 25. So now that I know it's the same language, I'll pick that one. That is 630 plus 20 plus 50. That is 680. So I'll draw a 680 by 25. Then I will have the pyramid. So there it is, okay, using guidelines, but now I need to come and use the true lines I am seeing. So I'll come and read from there. That is what I'm seeing. Okay. That one I'm seeing. That one I'm seeing. This one I'm seeing. Okay, so as you can see, the rules of thumb with regards to projection, they are simple. You must have an understanding of what you are doing. And then number two, you must project. Okay. In case you know that this column also has a copy, just a pyramidal copy. So whether you're looking at it from the front or the side, it's just the same. Okay. So there it is. So more or less done with our section. The only part that is remaining is our substructure. Okay. Now again, you must be knowledgeable on these things. If you don't know how substructure is done, then I'm afraid we'll have a challenge. Now, There are various ways of going about it. Some of us put what we call a ground beam. And since most of this ground beam will be covered on the ground, there will be no need of plaster and paint, okay? And below it, we normally have some few courses of masonry. In my case, allow me to use 2 courses. Between the ground beam that we don't have, just leave the ground beam and the masonry, okay? And then below the masonry wall, we usually have what we call a strip foundation, a strip. Basically, I'm doing a strip foundation. So the strip is normally 600 by 200. But remember, it's on a boundary, so it will be what we consider to be eccentric. So you'll have something like that, okay? So that you respect, okay? In our case, it's on this side. You have to respect your neighbor, okay? It's on our side, okay? And then below it, usually have, call it a blinding. It's the non-structural concrete. For us, we'll use 50. Split again. You'll notice that I'm modeling backwards, okay? Ideally, these things will not be constructed on air. The foundation will come before it, okay? And again, now that we have known that we have a foundation, we normally excavate. So, and in our excavation, we'll always have a backfill. So in our case, that will be the extent of excavation. On this side, since it's our neighbor also, just excavate up to that end. And then you'll have a backfill, okay? So this backfill will be of earth, but let's look for anything close to earth. Or even hardcore. Trying to look for something that's as close as can be. Seem not to be seeing any there. Now the earth, we can use the earth to show the actual ground, okay? So in our case, yeah, so that's the earth. All what I need now is a backfill. Let me see if I can get something close to a backfill. Not getting any. Maybe I can work with the rubble for now, because we normally just do a backfill. Allow me to use rubble for now. Try to look for something close to hardcore. Not getting it. So allow me to use rubble for now, okay? So as you can see, we have our sectional elevation. Anything that we see needs to be shown. We have that, and we have that. So I think with that, we're more or less done. I want to hide my guidelines so that we see, as I said, for me, rather not delete them, I will hide them. Okay, and that now clearly shows you my drawing from the sectional elevation to an elevation to a plan. So as you can see, we have our plan, we have our elevation, which is projected, the front view, and then we have our section, which is a side view, projected, okay? So this one I've deliberately done to assist you both in drafting and to also assist you in our studio work, because now when it comes to modeling, this section will be very critical, because you just pick up what you have done here and replicate it and use it, okay? Last but not least, I might want to show my ground. Remember that the ground is normally not that smooth. We can do that using our spline tool. And I can start somewhere. Okay, and that spline tool, if I cut anything, now turning the spline tool, then gives us that natural effect, okay? Now, when it comes to modeling, you don't need to go to this level because you'll have modeled your earth, your ground, so it will clearly show how it's supposed to be. But for now, I think that will do. Thank you for this session. Now we have learned how to draft our elevations. We have learned how to draft our sections, and most importantly, we have done it in an orthographic projection, okay? Our next tutorial, we'll use especially our section to do our actual model, so that when it comes to a boundary wall, we are not second guessing anything, but we are modeling it as supposed to be. Thank you. Let us meet next time.